Okay, hi everyone, welcome back. And in this video about ICP, we are going to do a full deep dive into one of the most talked about moments in DFINITY and internet computer community. And that's right, I am talking about the Caffeine AI presentation at WCS 2025 by Dominic Williams. Now here's the deal. This wasn't just another crypto conference keynote. This one, I believe, had some seriously important moments back then. But before we get into all the exciting bits, let's start with something really important, which is objectivity. You guys know that I always at least try to keep it real. So let me be honest right out of the bat. The biggest letdown of this presentation, in my opinion, was the fact that there wasn't actually a launch of the alpha version of Caffeine AI, because honestly, a lot of people, and myself included, were hoping to see the actual product going live at WCS 2025, or at least get our hands on some sort of a beta or something more concrete. That didn't really happen. And let's face it, when a project has been hyped this much, not having a beta version after so long can be a bit disappointing. But, and this is a big but, as we go deeper into this video, you will see that this isn't necessarily a deal breaker for us. In fact, there are some very good reasons for why this might actually be kind of a smart move and not necessarily a failure. So before we judge too quickly, let's unpack everything that happened in this keynote, from the core ideas behind Caffeine AI to why this project could actually change the way we build and use internet. So are you ready? Let's begin. And at first, I want to talk about this specific part of the presentation.
So how does caffeine work? Well, first of all, you talk to Caffeine. Caffeine then writes the code that runs your app and then uses that to deploy the next version of your app. And you can just refresh your web browser URL to see the changes you've made. So when AI codes and builds solo, you have something new. You have self-writing apps.
Okay, so in this part, Dominic Williams said something super interesting. He basically explains that you, as user, can talk to Caffeine AI, and then Caffeine talks to Internet Computer, ICP, and just like that, an app gets built. Sounds futuristic, right? Now, here is the deal. On the surface, this sounds kind of revolutionary. Like, for example, maybe this is going to be the next gen magic. But in real life, if we break all of this down, we see that the business model behind this idea actually isn't totally new, and that, from my point of view, is a great thing. In fact, there are real-world examples of companies that follow this exact same logic, and they will ultimately dominate because of that logic. Let me give you a perfect example. Hyundai. You see, most people believe that Hyundai is just another car manufacturer, but that is only scratching the surface. Hyundai actually has a full-blown ecosystem behind the scenes. It's not just building cars. They are also involved in steel production, for example, shipbuilding, logistics, transport system, finance, and even smart city infrastructure. And what does that mean? It means Hyundai controls every part of its supply chain, from raw materials all the way to final delivery. This gives them a massive edge, and they are not relying on dozens of external vendors and partners. These guys at Hyundai built a vertically integrated empire, and that makes them more efficient, more innovative, and way more in control. Now, back to Caffeine AI, and it's kind of the same idea, this time just in the tech world. You see, Caffeine AI doesn't just sit on top of some cloud provider or plug into random blockchains APIs. No, instead, it's actually designed to be deeply connected to ICP, a network that DFINITY controls and maintains across the entire stack, from the consensus layer to a smart contract layer to the storage and compute infrastructure. So when Dominic says you talk to Caffeine, Caffeine talks to ICP, and an app gets built, what he's really describing is a vertically integrated AI to blockchain pipeline. This is kind of similar to how Hyundai controls the manufacturing and logistics pipeline. This is, in my opinion, a huge deal. Why? because it tells us that the caffeine plus ICP combo isn't just a simple idea. It's actually an executable strategy, and it shows that they are building a platform that isn't held back by usual limitations like needing to stitch together, I don't know, maybe like AWS for compute, Ethereum for smart contracts, Arwave for storage, and so on and so forth. Everything in this case is in-house. Everything is optimized and everything is designed to work together. So yeah, while the alpha wasn't launched yet, what they have shown us is that the business foundation is absolutely legit, and it kind of mirrors some of the most successful execution models in the real world. And to me, that is a major green flag. Now, let's move on to the next very important part of the presentation, which I believe it did actually went under the radar.
And in the future, the internet will really write itself. And I think that's something you're going to get a peek at right now with the demo. All right. There we go. All right. So first things first. Behind me is a view of Caffeine on a laptop. And to the sides of me is a view of Caffeine on a phone I've got here, which is actually on the same account. So the phone view is important because for Caffeine, mobile users are first-class citizens. This is very much a mobile paradigm.
Okay, so in this part, Dominic Williams actually unveiled Caffeine AI, and this was, from my point of view, kind of the key moment when he said this is very much a mobile paradigm. And honestly, that line, from my point of view, really hit different. Why? Because I honestly believe this is probably one of the smartest moves DFINITY has made with this entire project. Let me explain why. Number one, Caffeine is clearly targeting retail and not just developers. Because let's be honest, no developer that at least I know builds full websites or apps on their phone. That is simply not a thing. Developers use desktops, VC mode, terminal windows, GitHub, and all those jazz. And also, I know some people that like to use Linux. So when I saw Caffeine running smoothly on mobile, it kind of became clear for me. Retail users, meaning normal everyday people, are a huge part of DFINITY's target audience. They are not just building this for coders. They are building it for anyone with an idea. And that, in my books, is absolutely a huge unlock, because if they get this right, and this is kind of a big if, Caffeine could become the Canva or Wix of Web3, but powered by AI and blockchain. Number two, the world is actually going mobile first, even for computer tasks. Because think about it, more and more people use their phones like computers, whether it's, for example, typing, or maybe video editing, or maybe running business tools, managing crypto wallets, you name it. People are doing all of those on their phones, and that, my friends, is exactly why, for example, phones with small screens are fading out, and at the moment I would like to argue they are probably nowhere to be seen, because nobody really wants to spend serious time doing complex tasks on their tiny screen phone. That is simply not the case. So when Caffeine shows up with a mobile-friendly AI development assistant, I was like, you know what, yeah, they actually get what is going on in here. They are not really stuck in some old school mindset. They are designing for how people actually live and work today. And this, in my opinion, shows real vision, and more importantly, it shows that the DFINITY team is 100% thinking about adoption and usability in the real world, which is great. Now, let's continue the video and talk about the specific design of the app.
All right. So something else you might notice is that it resembles a chat app, like Signal, WhatsApp, or Telegram, something like that. And that's because on Caffeine, projects, apps, are really conversations. So let's start one now. There you can see the app in the list of projects to the left and the chat on the right. The phone is just like it would on a chat app like WhatsApp, just showing the project, but we can click into it. So what else can we see? There are some different components to this tool. We're in the first component, which is chat, but you see something called spec, and when we develop an app.
Okay, now this is very interesting. Why? Couple of reasons first. Let's go through every single tab one by one. On the right corner of the app, we got at first the chat tab. And as the name suggests, well, okay, this is where all of your conversations with Caffeine happen. And it seems to be super intuitive, basically like ChatGPT. Now, the next tab is specs. This gives you basically a clean high-level overview of the app you are building. And honestly, this is really helpful, especially for the beginners who may not necessarily know how to structure a project. So this was definitely a good choice of tab. Now, pay attention to what is the next tab. It's actually the code one. And this is where things get a bit exciting. Why? Because it seems like that Caffeine actually shows you the code that it's writing in real time. And I really love this, because even though Caffeine is targeting retails, developers might also use it, and they always want to see the code. This builds trust, it creates transparency, and it helps people learn, which is great. Now, the next tab, this is the draft one, and you need to basically think of this as a working version of your app that isn't just live yet. You can make tweaks and get it just right before you hit publish, which will lead us to the final tab, live. This is your final product running live on the internet computer, and by a simple one click, boom, it is out there. All in all, the design of the Caffeine app is, in my opinion, extremely thoughtful. They have managed to make it accessible for beginners, but at the same time, also powerful enough for advanced users. And that balance, based on my experience and probably yours too, is very hard to pull off. So overall, I walked away from this part of the demo feeling really optimistic, because it really does show DFINITY isn't just building cool tech. They are building real tools for real people. And with all that said, let's move on to the next important part of the presentation.
Okay, whoop, blah, just so we have some content in that. Tag, ICP, demo, whatever. All right, so that's working. Still kind of basic, but we'll get back to that. Okay, what's happening with our tennis? Okay, let's go and look at our tennis. Okay, so that's still going. So let's go back here and ask it how many lines of code, did you write? Ooh, 700, not bad. Not bad going for a couple of minutes. All right.
Okay, so in my opinion, this was a very important moment that most people completely missed. Because in this specific part, Dominic asked Caffeine AI how many lines of code have you written so far, and Caffeine replies around 700, and everybody just, I don't know, moved on like nothing really happened. But hold on a second, this is huge. Let me explain why. You see, a few months ago, I actually made a full video about Caffeine where I said, look, at the beginning, this tool may not necessarily live up to the big slogan of self-writing internet. It's too early for that, and I still fully stand by that. It's a massive claim. You cannot really expect an AI to all of a sudden, with a snap of a finger, build Netflix or maybe Instagram on a scratch. Not yet, at least anyway. But what I did say was this: Caffeine doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be fast, cheap, and useful. Let's break it down with an example. Imagine you're building a product and you need a developer to write, let's say, I don't know, maybe like 100,000 lines of codes. I'm gonna say that's not really a big project, but it is a decent project for sure. And here's the deal: a decent developer might charge you maybe around $1,000 for that, and it might take them about, let's say, like 5 full workdays, possibly even more. Now, enter Caffeine AI. If Caffeine can generate 700 lines of codes in minutes, what do you think happens when you scale that up? Suddenly, something that used to take maybe 5 to 6 days and $1,000 might now take just a few hours and cost you, I don't know, maybe let's say $100. That's not just a cool feature, okay? I want you to understand this. This is a revolution in development costs, and every single thing in this world is about that specific word, cost. This is why caffeine could drive massive adoption, and it's not about building the perfect app with $0. So far, it seems like, based on the demo at least, it can definitely do that, but it's mainly, in my opinion, at least so far, about lowering the barrier to creation, because now you don't really need to hire a full dev team just to test an idea. You can build a prototype over the weekend on your phone with AI. It's faster, it's cheaper, and it's accessible to way more people. This is the real magic of caffeine, cost efficiency at scale. And I think this is what could potentially drive massive user adoption, not just in Web3, but across the entire startup and business world. So I fully believe this moment was actually one of the most underrated ones, and I really wanted to talk about this because when you put 2 and 2 together, you realize just how big of a product Caffeine AI can potentially be. And now let's talk about the final part of the presentation. And do you remember that at the beginning of the video, I said that maybe the fact that there was no alpha launch at the event isn't necessarily such a big deal? Well, now you see why. Because at the end of the demo, Dominic dropped the date. Caffeine's alpha launch is coming in about 29 days, and that is less than a month. And honestly, just knowing the fact that there is now definitely a clear date, not just some vague coming soon comment, is definitely a win in my book. So overall, personally, I am very excited. Caffeine might just be the product we have all been waiting for, and now it seems like that is actually real. It's launching, it's happening, and this is no longer about the hype. It is absolutely about execution. And when you have fundamentals this strong and actual working product, groundbreaking technology, cost-saving potential, and a clear roadmap, let me ask you this. Do you still believe ICP won't experience a massive bull run in this cycle? I honestly really doubt that. When you have got something like caffeine backed by DFINITY, powered by the internet computer, doing what no one else is doing, that's not just bullish. That is absolutely next level. And in my opinion, Caffeine Alpha might be the spark that could potentially ignite ICP's next big move. And I absolutely get it. It took so long for all the pieces to finally come together, but now here we are. This is not a promise anymore. It is basically a countdown. So overall, yeah, I am definitely bullish, and if you have been paying attention, you probably are too. Now here's a very important question. If this is a great product and ICP does have great fundamentals, and based on what we talked about in this update, I do believe that it absolutely has. Okay, do we have the right structures in terms of technical analysis, and in my field of works, specifically Helios waves, suggesting that we are going to have in ICP a massive bull run? And in case that you are a regular viewer, you should probably know the answer. It's absolutely 100% yes. Why is that? You see, let's go around here. If you want to say that we're going to have, for example, our final low around this area, maybe this is like an important support, then okay, fair enough. Off of the lowest low in here, then you need to show me a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave on the upside. This specific example is an impulse. Rules for it are, we should not have overlapping of the waves between wave 2 and 4, and in any kind of 5 wave, wave 3 should not be the smallest wave. Okay, this is a big no in Helios waves, and in terms of the sub waves, you know the deal. 5 wave up into wave 1, 3, and 5. Okay, sorry about that one. Let's just adjust the waves. And for wave 2 and 4, we can have many different possibilities. Doesn't really matter. Let's say WXY into wave 4 and ABC into wave 2. Now let's go on the live chart, and maybe it's best to go, for example, on daily time frame and see what is going on. So what's happening is starting from the lowest low all the way down here, about $2.8. As you can see, we absolutely have a clear cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave up with all the sub waves to about this high, and followed by that, this is a very slow move on the downside. Why do I say that? Okay, let's measure this whole move timing wise and compare it to the previous phase up. This move down so far is taking us about 500 candlesticks. On the other hand, this move up in ICP only happened in about 90 candlesticks on daily time frame. So from my point of view, this suggests despite having way more than enough time, it seems like that bears are kind of failing to pull the price all the way back down to these levels, suggesting we are having a correction structure, and on a higher degree, this might be a fantastic bullish setup, because you can definitely say, you know what, this is 5 wave up into a wave 1, followed by a correction for wave 2, and if this scenario is happening, what do you think is going to be next? We're going to have, I believe, a massive move up into wave 3 and 4 and 5. And why do I say the next move up in ICP is going to be huge? Because what is one very important characteristic of a wave 3? You know the answer, being a rather sharp and strong move on the upside. That's why I believe in ICP, everything in the mid to long term looks great. And sure, maybe in the short term we are going to have, I don't know, maybe like another 10 to 20% move down, but overall in the grand scheme of things, that is going to change absolutely nothing. I am one way or the other, especially with the recent presentation of Caffeine AI, extremely bullish. And I hope I explained everything well and you understood what is going on in internet computer. Anyway, if you found any value in my content, I would really appreciate if you like this video and consider subscribing to my channel and follow me on Twitter. And if you want more, maybe you want a complete analysis for your own specific crypto, or maybe you want to learn some decent TA in order to be able to make good money in the markets, you can become a member and ask me anything you want. And until the next update, I hope you have a wonderful time with your family and loved ones. Goodbye.